Birmingham University on the Buckinghamshire station. Clean starts for both crews by the looks of things. And at Henley, I suppose, the start is I think the critical component of racing here.
It is. I think the start, you sort of line up, you can't be complacent regardless of who you're racing, and I think these crews having coxswains takes a little bit of pressure off the actual rowers of having to steer themselves out of the start, but it's potentially the most exciting part when you don't know what's going to happen. There's often a few little issues with steering and things coming out of the blocks, and you're really on your toes, but both of these crews seem to be coping pretty well, and I guess this is where they'll be starting to push down into their rhythm and making sure they come on a good race pace, because it is a shorter race, but then also something that is maintainable, and they're not going to sort of go out and do a fly and die, which is never a lot of fun to be a part of.
Yeah, well, Lancaster looking like they've got a little bit more control, a little bit more poise in their boats at the moment, and settling, as you say, Grace, onto that race pace with a little more effect, about half a length up on Birmingham University. But talk to me a little bit as we watch the two Edinburgh crews coming up towards the line on the right-hand side. Edinburgh A will be progressing, but talk to me a little bit about how difficult it is actually to settle in a race environment, because it's so frantic off the start, and then you're expected to sort of basically calm down and get onto your rhythm in the context of what is a fairly intense battle side by side on the Henley course.
Yeah, I think regardless of the racing, it's always difficult, but in like a head-to-head one-on-one race, it's more difficult, because these races, you're obviously trying to get from A to B as fast as you can, but it's a little bit more tactical. I would say when you're lining up against 5-6 other boats, you can kind of stay in your boat and sort of be a little bit more internally focused. But in Henley, you've always got that temptation to be like, well, if we can sort of hold it up a little bit longer, maybe we can break the other crew early. But then you run the risk of then being like, oh, we've gone too hard for too long. So it's a lot. It takes a lot of self-control to have the confidence to be like, okay, we're going to push out. It's going to, like, we might still be side by side, but we back our own rhythm. And that's where, in these crews, the coxswains will be playing a huge, huge part, when the rowers can just like tune in, listen, and sort of have them as their eyes and ears, not having to make the decision themselves. And the coxswains will be assessing what's going on and giving their crews that sort of notice. But yeah, it's a tough part of the race as well, because it's almost, I've personally found, one of the hardest sections, because you're like, oh, I've almost sprinted for about a minute or so. Now I need to push out, and you're like, I've still got a long way to the finish line. But you do go through a patch, you're like, okay, now I feel a little bit better, and you're like, thank God I'm onto my race rhythm.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lancaster certainly managing to do that. We had Lancaster Bombers overhead yesterday, and Lancaster University on the course today doing something similarly spectacular, putting the screws to Birmingham University. And attritionally, it seems like an attritional thing, this. They were half a length, and they were a length and a half, and they're just continuing piece by piece, stroke by stroke, to move away from Birmingham University and building what I would consider at this stage, Grace, an unassailable lead, provided that nothing calamitous happens in the final 500 metres.
Yeah, I'd agree. This is a pretty big margin to make back up, and I imagine the winning crew is also sitting out there aware that they're going to have another race and sort of just controlling it. So I would say they've got another gear in case they started to sort of get chased down, but they've also got the advantage of being able to see their competition, which is always very relieving as a rower.
Absolutely, and conservation is the name of the game here on a hot day at Henley Women's Regatta. So we'll keep one eye on that race between Lancaster and Birmingham, the development Cox Fours, but the Championship Double Scull semi-final has started. Race 3, 4, 9, Strathclyde Park and Twickenham Rowing Club on the Berkshire station on screen there, up against Edinburgh University and Newcastle University. Northern powerhouses coming together to form what they hope will be a winning combination on the left of your left-hand side screen. And at the moment, Grace, it looks to me like this is a bit of a one-horse race. Strathclyde and Twickenham closest to the camera, doing all of the early running coming out of the island.
Yeah, they've really shot out. They've had a great start, and I think now that they know they've got that, it sort of takes the pressure off. They're in a small boat, they don't have a coxswain, so they're having to do their steering themselves, but they've sort of got themselves out of danger. Nothing's going to go wrong with crashing into the other crew or anything like that. So I mean, this far into the race, you'd be pretty stoked with that lead, but I guess this is when, as a crew that has come out behind, you've got to make a call now. Like, what do you do? Do you sort of hold it up and try and push back straight away, or do you have the confidence that maybe they've gone out too hard? But yeah, they've had a pretty impressive start, and maybe they just wanted to control it from the start and be able to sit there and hopefully turn up this afternoon and have a little bit more energy because of this